Hello everyone, Evan from Evan Jenkins Table here. This is IGN's Mouse PI for Hire review. It is every bit as good as you've heard, which is to say it's terrible. It is one of the top 10 worst YouTube videos of the first half of the year. It's really bad. Basically, it's a review of the video game Mouse PI for Hire, and I've played the game. I love the game. It's an amazing game. I love Mouse PI. So this review pisses me off even more now that I've played the game. But even before playing the game, I already hated the review because I could tell it was a bad review and why it was a bad review. Because this is one of those reviews that, even without playing the game, you know exactly the problems with the review because they're just that obvious. I once saw the YouTuber cartoon sheet called The Emoji Movie, Baby's First Negative Movie Review, because like everything that can be said about it is so obvious on a surface level. It's kind of the same with IGN's Mouse PI for Hire review, where everything you can possibly criticize is very obvious on a surface level, and there's not too much to add. I'm gonna try my best, because I do want to add something. Is there anything I like about the review? His critiques of the writing of the game, even though I don't entirely agree with them, for the most part, I do think are valid. But that's not like a positive aspect of the review, that's just like a valid critique. I guess that is technically a redeeming aspect, sure. But in terms of like positive actual aspects of the review, I can't think of anything. So much of what's said in this review is so atrociously like unwell researched and so bad. And it misunderstands the entire point of what cartoons are, what Mouse PI is going for, and in some cases, what the fundamentals of game design even are. The editing is competent enough. This is like an IGN review, so naturally the editing is going to be decent. I like the editing. There's some good moments. Well, I like the background music choices that play during the editing. But at the same time, the actual clips used at some points during the review seem like they're intentionally mocking the reviewer. Like the editor of this review video knows how bad the review written was, so he just mocked him in the editing. And that's evident from the very first clip in the video. Let me show you.
I love noir. I'll take all kinds. The hard-boiled detective,
Okay, not the first clip. Not the very first clip, but you'll see.
Crime story, neo-noir, classic pulp, you name it, I'm buying.
So, a common critique of the review that I 100% agree with, that's basically just true, is that the guy expected Mouse PI, a cartoon, to be a realistic noir setting game. Criticizes logical flaws of this cartoon based on that. So here is what the editor says in response, after he mentions that opening.
Okay.
It's like a sarcastic, okay. Like, does the editor of this video know that it's bad? It doesn't really excuse the quality of the review, but still, I think that's kind of an interesting thing to keep in mind. I don't know.
So when Mouse PI for Hire sauntered onto my screen the way Ilsa walks into Rick's in Casablanca, I was pretty excited about it.
That comparison is kind of cool, the way he says it. But at the same time, that comparison, him even saying that phrase, clearly shows that he misunderstands what the point of the game is.
While Mouse PI for Hire clearly understands the style and tropes of classic noir films and novels, as well as 1930s cartoons more broadly.
Oh! Yeah, it's almost as if you don't understand classic cartoons more broadly, and we'll get into that. Don't you fucking worry.
It doesn't seem to get why those things are there, or how they're used to tell compelling stories.
Yeah, man, it's almost as like it's a cartoon that wasn't really trying to tell that compelling of a story. There's definitely a story to it, and I argue it is mostly compelling. The story is not the main focus of the game. It's focused on being a cartoon video game with, like, it's a gameplay-focused game for the most part, right?
What bothers me, however, is how overly referential so much of it is. The world is full of mice, so everything is about cheese. Everything. A bad guy? He's a cheese-legger.
These cheese-leggers in on the shrew racket.
Run into a lady mouse with a sultry voice? It'll be described as
Gorgonzola picante slapped on her mozzarella platter.
Hey, a valid critique, although I think that some of the examples he gave are less so, like, meant to be jokes and more so meant to be, like, clever slang to expand upon the Mouse PI world, right? It doesn't sound like he's making a quip. It sounds like Jack is describing mouse talk in this universe, like slang, I guess. I understand that still being annoying, like that's valid enough, but I don't think that's meant to be a joke per se. I actually surprisingly enjoy most of the humor in the game, but there's a cheese pun when you're talking with Tammy at one point that I absolutely despise.
a steamboat named Willie, but at least that and the reference-heavy power-ups are cute. Constant callbacks to classic films or other video games? Not so much.
All of the examples of references he brought up are like pretty in-your-face references that aren't that subtle. Why does he mind the video game references but is okay with the cartoon references? He doesn't really elaborate on why that is, so he doesn't explain himself.
And actors led by Troy Baker do an admirable job with what they have, but nothing in Mouseburg is allowed to just be. It has to be a mouse reference, or a literally cheesy one-liner.
Cheddar.
Not true. There is a lot of serious moments in the game that are actually taken seriously, so that's blatantly false.
At least the shooting is better. This is the latest in a wave of boomer shooters inspired by old-school FPSs like Doom or Quake, and it's a decent one at that. You start with
a decent boomer shooter. Keep in mind he said that. Just keep that in mind, okay?
Pistol in Jack's fists, but you'll soon acquire a shotgun, dynamite, a James gun, which is just a Tommy gun, and more unique stuff like the Devarnisher, which shoots what looks like Elmer's glue that melts the flesh from your enemy's bones, leaving...
I love the Devarnisher and the Tom gun, or the James gun? The James gun. Those are easily the two best weapons in the game.
Like a double jump, dash, spinning tail for hovering, and a slide, and Jack's got some stylish moves when the bad guys show up. This ain't Quake, but it does feel good. It doesn't hurt that...
Oh, it feels good, right? Okay, interesting. Keep in mind, he said it's a boomer shooter that feels good, and he does, I think, mention that it's varied enough to take you through the game, so just keep that in mind he said
all of
that.
It, from reload animations to random conversations, is rendered in an absolutely gorgeous black and white mix of sprite work and 3D models. The world building may be thin, but Mouse PI for Hire is still dressed to the nines. Even here, though, I have issues. Weapons can feel weak, especially the shotgun. It's got the audio kick of a pop gun, and there's a strange disconnect to seeing something that sounds like a kid's toy blow off some poor mouse's head as you paint the white of the world with black ichor that spews from his neck.
It is a cartoon! You expect... No, if it had, like, a realistically, like, Doom-esque sound effect after you shot him, that would be more jarring, because... It's a cartoon. It's supposed to, like, sound like a cartoon. Because you are literally playing a cartoony game. I guess you could also make the violence of the guy dying not as bad, but that wouldn't really work either. The guy dies horrifically, sure, but, like, it all makes... Okay, if this wasn't a cartoony game, this complaint would be valid. Like, okay, yeah, maybe, like, the audio of the sound effect doesn't fit the head popping off, right? But it's a cartoon video game. If the actual Doom sound effect when you shoot an enemy or something were to, like, play, that would be way more jarring, honestly.
Enemies mostly come out of doors marked with a skull that you can't enter, robbing these areas of anything remotely resembling a sense of place. Levels also really like to pull the "we're gonna lock you in a room and throw baddies at you until they're dead or you are" shtick a little too much for my taste.
Okay, so that first part about, oh, like, there's a lack of a sense of place because enemies come out of skull doors, but you can't enter them. That's kind of a video gamey thing, but I can understand that being a valid complaint in terms of, like, why can't Jack enter these doors, but the enemies can enter and exit out of them, right? That complaint is fine. Yeah, it's a gamey thing, but I can still understand that being a bit immersion breaking, sure, sort of, I get it. But that other thing he said, oh, this is a game that locks you in a room full of enemies all the time, and you gotta defeat them to move on. You know, like, that's what a boomer shooter is. You literally mentioned that's a boomer shooter. You said that. What did you expect? That's the gameplay, yes, because that's what a boomer shooter is. That's the genre. Well, subgenre, whatever. Like, are you, like, I don't understand. What is that complaint about? That's what I mean by this review. This is a review that misunderstands how game designs and cartoons even work in the first place. This is nothing against the guy who wrote this as a person, but I firmly believe he doesn't know how games are supposed to be designed. He doesn't understand game design, and he doesn't understand cartoons. Why was he tasked with reviewing a cartoony video game? I don't understand.
None of this is game-breaking. The combat is fundamentally good enough to carry you to the end of the roughly 12-hour campaign, but sometimes it feels like being at a show that's never quite bad.
If the combat is good enough to get you through these rooms in a boomer shooter, that should be good, right? Like, oh my god.
Enough to leave, walls to blow up, and even lock safes to open with your tail, which pulls double duty as a lockpick. Some of these locks are on a time limit, or must be solved in a limited number of moves, and you only get one shot at the good stuff they hold. Others are so easy you could probably solve them by letting an actual mouse run across your keyboard. It's very jarring.
Hey, have you ever heard of this? Hey, Will, you ever heard of the difficulty sliders? That's another game design thing that you clearly don't understand, despite just the fact that you're supposed to be a game reviewer. Like, it's levels of difficulty, not difficulty sliders. That would imply you can choose the difficulty of the lockpick. You can't in the game. Correction. There are different difficulties of lockpicks. That's how games like this work. Sometimes, like, the lockpick is easier if it's, like, a required one. Sometimes the harder ones are, like, for secret areas. One of the most valid complaints about the game, and I'm shocked that this reviewer doesn't mention it, because it's an actually valid complaint you can bring up with the game. The complaint I have is the lack of replayability in Mouse PI. How once you beat a level, you can't go back. Unless you, like, start a new save file, which is ridiculous, by the way. I hate that shit, but I don't know. I'm surprised it doesn't mention that in this review, because I would, like, make this slightly more valid in a certain specific redeeming aspect way. As it stands, this review is even worse than it would be.
I like less is the whole being a detective thing, mostly because I never actually got to do it. Any clues you find will be pinned to Jack's caseboard, and once you get them there, Jack will just intuit where to go. No worries.
A valid critique, but it's not really meant to be a detective kind of game. It's an FPS game with like a detective story.
That brings me to one of my major problems with Mouse PI for Hire.
Oh. Okay, so far we've had examples. We had a little example of, like, a misunderstanding of how cartoons work with, like, the gun thing I mentioned earlier. But mainly the misunderstanding of what Mouse PI is going for is, like, misunderstanding game design. This is when the review goes from bad to one of the worst YouTube videos of the entire year. It's insane.
Look, I hate to be that guy who brings up ludonarrative dissonance in a video game review in the year of our Lord 2026. And if you're rolling your eyes right...
Then why do you do it? It would be one thing if it was actually a valid complaint, but it's not. It's insane.
Now, I can't blame you, but it's an
interesting
actual issue here. Jack Pepper is a PI who kills more people in a single mission than Philip Marlowe has in every book Raymond Chandler ever wrote combined. I don't care how corrupt the cops are. A private detective can't break into a police station and slaughter them en masse and then go about his day. And one particularly nonsensical...
Yeah, man, it's almost like it's this crazy thing called a cartoon where there are flaws in the logic, and the examples you're pulling from as to what it should do are, like, live-action, noir, realistic things. It's almost like this is going for something else because it's a cartoon. This is real. Modern criticism largely suffers a lot of the time because... the reviewer wants something else other than what the piece of art is initially going for. That's a big problem with a lot of modern criticism, a lot of modern media reviews. This is one of the worst examples of that in years. I'm not kidding. Out of every IGN journalist review any of their journalists have ever written in the history of the company, there's a reason this is like one of the most legendarily terrible of that entire bunch. It's one of the worst IGN reviews of all time, let alone one of the worst YouTube videos of the year. I'm dumbfounded.
Burns down an opera house to save a guy running for mayor, and he ends up fighting an opera singer and shoots her? Is she dead?
And so you did not pay attention to the plot? If you were paying attention to the story, like, and you were actually paying attention to what was happening in the game, you'd know that this is not, that she's like a fraud. She's a fake. All the actors there, including her, are meant to be, like, imposters trying to destroy the mayor. That's the whole point of that scene. You're fighting the opera singer because she and the other enemies there are, like, faking themselves as stage proper people to assassinate the mayor character. If you paid attention to the plot, you'd know this, you idiot.
Shoots her? Is she dead? Did I just kill an actress for being angry I burned down her workplace? If I didn't, have I left her alive and unconscious inside a burning building?
Probably she's dead because there's blood everywhere. What kind of a question is that?
Mouse PI for Hire doesn't tell me, and it doesn't seem to care.
Because it's a cartoon. Hey, Will, hey buddy, why does SpongeBob live in a pineapple under the sea? Why are there, like, fish people? Why are there fish humans in SpongeBob? Why do these fish humans watch TV and do, like, these humanoid things despite the fact that they're supposed to be fish? And why do they speak English? Fish in real life don't speak English. It's almost like it's a cartoon.
Either way.
Forget it, Jake. It's Chinatown.
None of this is to say that noir...
This is like complaining that how the Roadrunner... There's like the iconic Roadrunner Wile E. Coyote scene, right? Where the Wile E. Coyote is in midair before he falls down the cliff, as Wile E. Coyote mocks him. Sure, like, if it were real life, that would be a flaw in consistency, but it doesn't matter because it's a cartoon. Like, yeah, it's a cartoon. it's fine that Wile E. Coyote doesn't immediately fall to his death, that he, like, is in midair for a sec. It's a cartoon. What did you expect? Like, actually complaining about that as a flaw in logic, that's about as valid as this review. It's insane.
Cannot or should not be violent, but the violence usually has a purpose. Much of Elliot Chase's seminal novel...
Because it's a cartoon. The purpose is to entertain you as a cartoon. And this isn't supposed to be a realistic noir setting. Well, it's not. It's supposed to be a noir setting, like a noir aesthetic, but it's not supposed to be a realistic noir story.
Black Wings has people it touches. Here, it's just entertainment, and that weakens the whole concept. But
yeah, man, it's a cartoon.
You might say. This is a goofy Looney Tunes FPS.
Here we go. He's finally gonna attempt to address it near the end of the review. He should have done this earlier, by the way. But, like, the problem is that what he says is a weak defense.
Why should I care about any of that? And the answer is because Mouse wants you to. It wants you to.
Does it?
Believe this is important. You spend a lot of time talking about these characters, about putting together the clues you need to get to the bottom of what's going on, about Jack's motivation for doing the work. He allegedly needs...
Dude, like, yeah, you care about the characters, and there is some seriousness in the story, but this game does not take itself seriously enough for, like, the whole flaw in logic you're mentioning to really be an issue at all. It's definitely a silly game. There's some high tenseness, sure. But for the most part, the game is wacky as hell. What are you talking about?
The money, which both leads him to taking...
And yeah, you care about the characters, but that's just because they're well-written and likable characters.
...cases, and doesn't track when I'm super rich from all the killing.
Nonsense.
Have you never played a video game before? First of all, it's a cartoon, so, like, it's not only a cartoon, it's a cartoon video game. Yeah, you're earning a lot of money in, like, the game. Even if we look at it in the logic of the cartoon, the amount of money Jack Pepper earns probably won't be enough for him to pay his own debts, because he always just spends that money on weapon upgrades in the card game, because you kind of have to do that in the game. The game requires that. Say you were watching a reaction to this review like mine that constantly said the word, "it's a cartoon," every time it was necessary. Take a shot every time that would be unnecessary for us to say if someone were reacting to this review, and you think you would be dead in like 5 minutes. You wouldn't make it to the end.
Cartoon nice and not think about it too hard. But once you do, all you'll see are the seams where disparate ideas have been fused together.
Yeah, man, it's almost like you're not supposed to think about it as hard as you have because it's a cartoon! Gives it a 6 out of 10. I will say, usually the whatever that shape is around the number score is like red, but the fact that they turn it black to fit the aesthetic of the game, cool. That's a cool aesthetic, I guess. So in terms of my review score, I give it a 1 star out of 5. It's a terrible IGN review, one of the worst in the company's history. Let me know in the comments what you thought of my reaction and what you thought of the initial video. And that's about it. Bye-bye.